Okay. So behind us is First Light Books. That's one of my favorite morning stop-offs. I get my coffee there, get my book knowledge in, and then I hit this neighborhood up, Hyde Park in Austin, to go for my morning walks.
Cool.
Even though it's July, it feels like spring is in the air because all the flowers are in bloom, the birds are singing their tune, and the little bugs are flitting around.
Yeah, love it.
So, not a bad way to start a day, not a bad way to get to know somebody new, to move our feet, take our steps, find out what's up with this guy right here. I don't know if you guys know him. I don't really know him, but I'm about to get to know him. Ladies and gentlemen, meet Gene Gallerano.
On your left.
You're listening to Doc Walks with Ben and Keith.
Hey. Like most of my best projects, typically they start in an alley anyways. So.
Yeah, got a lot of back alley experience.
Yeah.
Every one of my projects starts over drinks. Not usually coffee. Coffee is what runs them to the finish line, but usually the initial instance, the moment of inspiration, usually comes on kind of like a happy hour setting, a backyard barbecue. I've had a couple projects start at weddings.
What kind?
Literally, my first documentary, it was Eyes of Me, came out in 2009. It was a year in the life of 4 blind teenagers. And I was at my sister-in-law's wedding, and the best man at the wedding worked at the Texas School for the Blind. And, you know, at the reception, we got seated at the same table and, you know, kind of, what do you do? What do you do? And when he started telling me about working with blind teenagers, he just kind of opened my eyes to people and experience that I had never really spent any time thinking about. And every question I asked him, he had an answer that surprised me. I realized like every preconceived idea I had about what it was to be blind was completely wrong.
Wow.
And so the more we talked, the more stupid I felt, but the more I was leaning in and the more I was kind of drawn into wanting to get to know that world. And he said, oh, come by the school and I'll introduce you to some kids, but I have to tell you, if you meet these kids, you're going to want to make a movie about them. And he was right.
What did you learn?
Oh, shit. I mean, what I learned primarily is that making a movie about blind teenagers is making a movie about teenagers. And what I also learned is that making documentaries was completely different than I thought it was. You know, it was my first feature. And I came down here to Austin from the Lower East Side in New York. I thought I would be here for 9 months. And here we are. It's exactly 21 years later, and I'm still in Austin. And I'm still trying to figure it out. But thank you for asking me, Gene, about me. This isn't about me.
Well, it's funny that
I have to remind myself that, but
that's all right. It's about us. That's funny that you said that about, you know, I learned that they're just teenagers.
Yeah.
One of my first jobs in New York City was for this man who had multiple sclerosis. I was an actor, moved to New York, trying to find the path. You know, lots of odd jobs. Found a job on this thing called Craigslist.
Yeah.
Some people might not be aware of anymore. Yeah. But it was for this guy named Danny. He was an Academy Award nominated props guy, and he had multiple sclerosis, needed a personal attendant. I went in, I was like, wow, this is kind of fascinating. Maybe I can do this. And his wife, Nadina, was in a chair from polio as a kid. And they had a cat with CP, so it looked like it was doing the robot. So it's quite
There's a lot
the
going on
eclectic house.
yeah.
And I was shown the job, and I was so terrified because I was basically going to attend to this man. You know, I could barely attend to myself, and I was attending to this full-grown man in a chair and taking him. He was a big protester, and Occupy Wall Street was happening around then as well. And
That's good.
one of the things I learned, just to loop into what you said, was I was kind of afraid of some of these people. You know, he had this very big group of friends in chairs with all kinds of different things, and they were just like anybody else. They just happened to be in chairs.
That's right.
Some people were great, some people were assholes, and some people were rich and complex. Interesting experience along the path of, I don't know.
So Gene Gallerano, you are a man on the move.
Mm-hmm.
You drove down from Dallas today. We were talking about life in New York. You've made a film that I watched yesterday that's set in Dallas. Congratulations on your multiple awards from the Waco Film Festival this weekend.
Yeah, it's thank you for listening to this film. I'm from East Dallas, so I'm an East Dallas boy, and I was on a plane going to mix this TV show on, actually the episode I was working on was an Austin photographer named Dan Winters. I love.
We're buddies with Dan.
Oh yeah?
My wife is a photographer, and she's known Dan probably 25 years.
Okay, Dan, Kath, Dylan, like family, love them. I was going to mix the score in Europe, and I walk on the plane, and there's this human being, and he's quite the presence in every way, but also physically. And I walked on, you see this guy, Joshua Ray Walker, and he's this country Americana singer. And I saw him, and I had actually seen a video of his on Instagram or some social media where he was singing, and I saw he's a Dallas musician. I was like, oh, that's cool. Maybe someday I'll make the country music version of Once with Joshua Ray Walker. That was my thinking. Forgot about it. Walk onto the plane, see him. I'm like, Joshua Ray, holy shit. And we talked for like 7 hours straight. And I really thought it was just this great connection. I loved him. Our mamas grew up about a mile from each other on Peavy Road in East Dallas. Love at 30,000 feet as far as I was concerned. And he was going on this big tour of Europe. And so as soon as we landed, I gave him all my stuff. I said, hey, we have to do something. And I didn't hear anything from him. Hit him up a couple days later, nothing. Couple weeks later, nothing. Month and a half, nothing. And at a certain point, I was embarrassed. I was like, I can't believe this.
You fell in love and then you got ghosted.
I was like, my meter is so off, though. I can't believe this. Maybe 3.5 months later, I get a text message, Gene, I'm so sorry. I was diagnosed with cancer. I'm gonna be off the road for the next 8 months. Do you still want to make a film? And I had just finished producing this film called American Symphony on this musician, John Batiste, and his wife, Suleika.
Just this little musician, John Batiste, just this little film.
Yeah, well, we finished it, but it was, his Suleika, who was battling cancer during it. He's obviously a musician and wonderful. My friend Matt Heineman directed it, and it's on Netflix and won Grammy. And I was like, I don't know if I can do a cancer music documentary better than that.
Okay, noted.
So we should do. I'm super open because I really do think you're special, but we have to do something different. Of course, I didn't live in Dallas. I didn't have a camera, so I started troubleshooting as we do, right?
Yeah.
We started thinking about how could I actually pull this off. I don't have any money. I just have an idea and some guy who's got some time on his hands now because he's gonna battle cancer. And it was stage 3, so it was like the odds of him surviving and taking care of it were pretty high if he was just like healthy and followed the orders. And
well, with all that in mind, like, how do you figure out, like, what's that step? What's that next thing you have to do? You have no money, you have a good idea.
I'm always like the guy who tells people, just put yourself in the corner and you have to get out, whatever that is. So if it's like you ask somebody for money and they give you $700 and then you have to make the movie because you just can't ever face them again. Or if you book the space or you buy a camera or whatever it is, tell people, get some accountability going.
Roll the ball downhill and see where gravity takes you.
Yeah. And so I said yes. Then I started troubleshooting all the things, and there were a lot of problems. Again, don't live there, don't have a crew, don't have a camera. I started calling some places. I was like, this guy's sick. He can't even go out to anywhere. He can't go out. So you can't get him out in the world, really. Right. So it's got to be some kind of space that we have access to that I can come back to every once in a while and we can start filming, which proved to be very difficult to find. And I couldn't crack the code. And so, I'm going to do one as well. Should I do one as well?
You do one, I'll do one. I just wanted to grab this guy here. Getting political here. Ooh.
We get the wrap.
Okay, yeah. This is what we call circle of confusion. Now you gotta, here, we do one more of these. Okay, Gene's circling me, I'm circling Gene. Now we're gonna wrap it the other way and switch your lens. Swinging a lens and swinging the other way.
Okay.
What is going on?
I see. Wow.
Getting psychedelic here on Doc Walks. We are with Gene Gallerano. We are talking about, thank you for listening, Joshua Ray Walker.
Joshua Ray.
We have a synchronistic meet cute on an international flight. We fall in love. But like star-crossed lovers, Joshua and Gene,
it's both alike in dignity.
so there you go. They cannot come to terms initially because Joshua is otherwise drawn into the personal, kaleidoscope of cancer, fighting cancer treatment. And so you're at this point, you're living in Brooklyn.
I'm living in Brooklyn.
You're coming off the heels of the John Batiste documentary, which again, maybe we'll get back into here. But if you haven't seen American Symphony, what have you been doing? But that film, kind of blows the doors off of what a personal music doc can do, and also just serenades the beauty of that relationship, that couple, and the generational talent that is John Batiste. So you're coming off the heels of that and the success of that. Did you go on the world tour of festivals and release with that film?
I went to Telluride,
Beautiful.
the premiere, and then it went on its journey. And I don't know where else I went, but
okay,
so various screenings wherever I was. It played everywhere, so it was easy to catch screenings.
But you'd had this kind of world-class experience just recently as a producer. Working with a great director, Matt Heineman, right? Been around the block quite a few times.
Fantastic director, yeah.
Yeah. And now you're thinking, I'm going to step behind the director's chair myself, but I'm going to do it from distance. I'm going to do it without money. I'm going to do it without a crew. What am I doing?
And so my solution was, I'll go to the one resource I know that won't say no, my mother. And I say, Mom, can we get rid of all of the grandkids stuff in the grandkids room in the loft space above your bed? And can I build a set there? She of course said yes. So I was like, okay, I have something now. Now I need to build a set. Now I need to think about it.
You need a production designer. You need to start collecting up that. Okay, so if you haven't seen, thank you for listening. To paint a visual picture of what you're talking about, you built a set for the character to kind of exist within. Now, the character, Joshua Ray Allen, he is a larger-than-life personality. He's got a voice of a songbird, and he's, like you said, a presence. When we meet Joshua Ray in the film, his head is freshly shaved. He fills the frame in every way.
Yep, absolutely.
And he really kind of like wears his personality on his sleeve, literally through tattoos and patches and various wardrobe choices that kind of let you into the style and the shape of how he wants the world to meet him. But we meet him in this kind of humble moment in this set that you've built. Describe the set for us.
This is where my co-director Bob Ray really came in, who I met at the South by Southwest Film Festival. He's an Austin filmmaker, been around for a long time, done a lot of really cool projects. Met him at South by. He always likens it to like cocaine talk at a party where you meet and you're like, let's make something. But true to form, I think this is actually very thematic with me. I called him and said, remember we were talking about this, let's do this. And so I think a big part of, filmmaking, especially when you have $0 or you're about to open the bank account or the credit card, is you really have to convince people to go on the adventure with you. That's a huge part of filmmaking is like, come along on this adventure, please. Like
the pitch begins with your subject, it continues with your crew.
Yep, and you have to back it up. Your mom, mom was the easiest one. And Josh was around, and that was great because he's about to go through chemotherapy. And so I talked with Bob, and I said, this is what I think the move is. Let's build a set. And we kind of just started riffing. I remember Josh had been telling me about his grandfather had this shed in his backyard. And so I was like, let's try and build that out. Let's build this idea of like, he's in a purgatory. He's in this limbo space right now of being off the road for the first time in his career. Also healthcare scare. Let's just run with that. And Bob is this really, really talented art director here as well and production designer. And so we just started going and we hired a couple of the Ray nephews as well.
I saw there were some Rays in the credits.
A lot of Rays in the credits, and we just started building this set and we started grabbing all the nostalgic pieces. So there's stuff from Bob's house, Josh's house, my house. I was going through the attic, which was right next to the space, my mom's house, finding all these old trinkets and guitars and strange things that we all had lying around that we thought could work. And so we built this set. I had a couple younger crew members who had reached out to me recently in New York, but were also from Dallas. We all went to Booker T. We had a little separation in years, but we all went to Booker T, which is the arts magnet there in downtown Dallas.
I want to come back to that at some point.
Yeah. And they had both reached out to me, and I said, here's the deal. I'm making this movie. Come along on the ride with me. I promise I think this is going to be worth it. And I promise if you come and just give me one time, one shoot, I think you will see what I mean. And they went and they stayed at their mama's houses in Dallas, flew themselves in, and we had a camera from one of my friends who had passed recently, this really great Irish DP, Ross McDonnell, and I asked the 5 families of people that were kind of overseeing the gear after his passing. I said, can I borrow his stuff and bring it and do this shoot? And everyone agreed and so it already was like developing this chemistry and this magic before we ever had a shoot.
Also, just what a great tribute to a fallen friend and a colleague. Did you feel like his presence is baked into the project?
Absolutely, and I'm not a big gearhead, but I just remember talking to the DP and I said, just don't change any settings.
Oh, wow.
Because he's got it all. He was like a super doc jock to the max, had won all the awards, been in every conflict zone, had been all over the world, real just poet and like
That's
a beautiful man, Ross McDonnell. And
all right, shout out Ross
I was like,
McDonnell.
just don't, absolute shout out. And I was like, just don't change any of his settings because it'll feel like we have him watching over us. And so we built this set, and it we had this first shoot, and we got Josh up there and kind of designed his outfit. And so we started talking, and he told this beautiful story about his grandfather. So Josh has 3 generations of cancer from the male figures.
Yeah.
And he started telling this story about his walking into his grandpa in the shed, and he was watching on a VHS tape wild horses running, and just had his head on his shoe, for comfort, which totally makes sense in a certain way, and was watching these wild horses and listening to bluegrass and just crying and crying and crying. And he said, it's the only time I've ever seen my grandfather cry. And 11 days later, he passed from cancer. And it was his way of processing. I think in even larger way, it was his way of showing Josh it's okay to express these things when you need. It was this really, really just beautiful moment. And Josh is very full. He's so open and honest and loving. Like, he just has this huge heart, and you just saw it all over. And I think the 3 crew members, all 3 of us, we all just knew we were sitting on something. And so it didn't take any convincing after that point for anybody to come along on the adventure,
Well, undoubtedly. Look, Joshua Ray Walker, you need to look him up. If you can't see the film just yet, you can certainly track down Josh and his expansive career that's, I think, growing every day.
Oh, yeah.
And he's just like a light of like warmth and authenticity, and then, has the talent to back all that up. So you can't help but being drawn in.
He yodels. He shreds the guitar.
He plays a 3-string guitar. Is that a standard for him, or that's just one of the beat up old guitars that you picked up?
That's in our film, because the first guitar he ever got was at a pawn shop that his grandfather bought for him. They couldn't afford any more strings. So we were like, the film has so many of those tie-ins. Similarly, like a lot of actually every crew member who worked on the film had lost someone to cancer besides me.
Well,
and so it was
I'm right there with those folks, and I'm drawn in multi-generation, not the exact story, but pretty close to Josh. It missed me by 5 degrees and went from my father to my brother. My father didn't make it, my brother did.
Okay.
And so far I'm good, but this is a story that definitely like speaks to a question of intergenerational male relationships, kind of a man's place in the world. It starts off by even challenging the concept of gender just through Josh's previous experience. I won't get into all the details of that, but I just want to say, like, this is a really layered and kind of dense portrait. And it's not a short. It's, what is it running? Like 26 minutes, 27? and it earns every minute of it, but it also kind of defies like a lot of the logic that, you know, you see bouncing around. And I'm sure advice I've given other filmmakers, if it can be less than 20 minutes, it should. If it can be less than 15,
For sure.
right? Why would a programmer give up half their block for your fast short when they could get 3 others in there?
Absolutely.
And yet,
limitations.
yeah. So do you mind jumping into that mindset? How do you kind of weigh those decisions that ended up with a 27-minute short?
I mean, I think the material really defines where you can go. I've definitely made things that were like a thin feature or too much of a novella, right?
Right.
I've also had the opposite where I made a thin feature and then that got rejected. I made this feature called Starring Austin Pendleton, and it was just thin. And I had all these celebrities. I mean, I had so many people speaking. I had Meryl Streep, Peter Sarsgaard, Natalie Portman, Ethan Hawke, Philip Seymour Hoffman, who my guy Austin had discovered. I had all these people saying these beautiful things. It was this awesome meditation on art and staying in the craft and like going where the work is. But we made this feature and it was thin. It just couldn't sustain itself.
Yeah.
And it got rejected from everywhere. And I remember sitting there thinking, like, how is this possible? How is this possible that this thing, I missed the mark so badly? And so I sat with it and I kicked some cans in the street and, you know, looked up at the stars a bit and did some drinking.
Let's jump back to that moment though, because
Yeah.
this is, I think, like, you know, we cover a lot, you know, we talked to a lot of doc filmmakers and a lot of filmmakers and storytellers on this podcast. And just in 30 years of bumping around festivals and whatnot, I don't think we've talked about this. I don't think we've talked about the idea of a thin feature and the kind of decision-making that goes into, you know, we definitely talked about the idea of the right length for a short, quote unquote, right length for a short. But the right length for a feature and how much weight a feature has and what that does for you, especially when you're an emerging filmmaker. You made Starring Austin Pendleton, I think in 2011.
Yeah, maybe. Mine doesn't really work in dates, but sure.
Okay.
Yeah, younger.
When you made that thin feature, Meryl Streep, Philip Seymour Hoffman, all these folks agreeing to come out and sit for you, share what they could with your film, and then it starts getting rejections. What was going through your mind, and did you ever consider recutting?
Quitting.
Oh, quitting. I know. I never consider quitting. I don't assume anyone else does either. But
man,
but
come on.
recutting, knocking a feature to a short, or where were you at that moment?
Well, I'll have to say, we bought a camera, a Panasonic DVX100B, which is the old
Sweet.
mini DV, you know, we're out of the gate, right?
I've got one sitting on my shelf in my office.
Yeah, I want to bronze mine because it's
Yeah.
about all it's good for now. But we did every poor technical filmmaking method possible. I mean, I remember Meryl Streep, it was like the AC couldn't have been any worse placed right above her. Philip Seymour Hoffman's got these bounce board in our bounce board blasting in his glasses. You know, it was like every time he looked up, it was you're blinded by it. So we made every mistake you could, but in some beautiful way, this goes back to that idea of like the film defines the style and the length and all of that. It kind of fit Austin, who's this little monk-like figure walking around the streets of New York and just going, you know, wherever the next rehearsal is. And so we made this thing, we followed him around. It felt just like that. I mean, we were learning to shoot. You know, who knows how many out of focus things there were or how many things we actually blew technically that we had no clue about. But we made this feature. I think we made it for like $13,000 and it got rejected from everywhere. And so we're all pretty beat up. And my biggest question was how, you know, this seems, we just missed the mark. I was obviously hurt. I'm very sensitive. My feelings were hurt immensely, but I was like, I have too much good stuff. We just missed the mark somehow.
Yeah.
And so I think one day I was like, what if I just take the best bits from the whole thing and just throw them together and see what happens? And so I did. I didn't tell anybody. And I had this maybe like, who knows, 25 minutes of material. And I'm like, wow, this is kind of interesting. And so that unlocked it for us. We ended up making a 19-minute short. It premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival. We had this panel with Austin and Olympia Dukakis and Peter Sarsgaard and all these really cool people that came out for it.
And were any of them mad at you that came to you and they said, why wasn't this a feature?
No.
How dare you cut this to...
Absolutely not. Everyone laughed. It was a great time. It was a really, and it really sung.
Yeah.
And I think that was a really important lesson. But we also had the luxury of not having anybody over our shoulders.
Right.
We didn't have any financial responsibility to anybody, right? Other than our one producer, Satomi, who was great. But she was our friend as well and learning alongside us. And so we had the luxury of doing that, which you don't always get now, right? You get a bigger budget and you have mo money, mo problems, as has been said many times.
It's been repeated oft. It's been oft repeated. Yeah, no, that's exactly right. Well, this is wonderful. I asked that question not knowing the answer. I'm glad we've stumbled into a major life lesson here. You know, not to quit, but to reconceive. And
I was thinking about it on the way down here.
Tell me.
And I was thinking about something, what Austin, he opens the movie and he talks about how Hollywood and the business spends most of its time trying to beat you away with a baseball bat. And if you just hang around and if you just keep showing up, eventually they say, oh, is he still here? And they open the door for you and give you the shot.
Yeah.
And so I've been thinking about that a lot. What's up, brother?
Thank you. Appreciate it. Yes, if you just keep hanging around is the advice. You know, a lot of people we ask, and I will ask at the end of the episode, what's the advice you give to an emerging filmmaker? And more often than not, people say, just do it. Mm-hmm. But just keep hanging around is maybe as valuable as just do it. Like Dayton Thompson, who is the producer of this podcast, became the producer of this podcast because he just kept showing up. Every time I went to a film event in Austin, there was this tall, inquisitive, curious, wide-eyed guy. And he'd always kind of find me and then ask me some pointed question that I wasn't expecting. And it wasn't just me he was talking to. He was talking to lots of folks. But that idea of just keep showing up, or like you said, just keep hanging around, there's a lot of value and there's a lot of wisdom in that. What's a space that was like that for you before you moved into the big time? Where was a space that you found yourself hanging out? Was there a place like that in Dallas, maybe in your Booker T days? Any kind of like early... I hung out at a place in Dallas called Bill's Records and Tapes.
Oh, sure.
I don't know if you ever went to Bill's.
Sure, yeah.
Was there a place that kind of like fed your early inspiration?
Man, I had a lot. My parents were like big in the humanities, as we always like to say. So in our house growing up, if you didn't hear about the human condition before 8 a.m., something was off, you know? So we had a lot of that stuff. You know, a lot of like poetry and big ideas and epic poems. And
were you a theater goer?
No, I don't think we could afford any of that, but we would talk about it all. Yeah. We always had a very welcoming house. And my dad was a visual artist, and so we'd go to he worked at this bar called Poor David's Pub. Yeah. And I remember he would pick us up.
Greenville?
Greenville. He'd either pick us up and we go to help open the bar with him. Me and my little sisters go help open the bar, you know, for his shift that evening, or else we would be picked up in a rental car and taken to, you know, whatever show he was going to mount around Dallas. So we had the arts, and like I said, if you talked, my mom's obviously a huge lover of the arts, huge supporter.
She's a supporter of you, and I know if I need a set built in Dallas,
that's where you go.
I can get a deal.
That's where you go. The loft space. The loft. Yeah, I moved to New York at 19, and I didn't know anybody. I had a grandfather there. He died 2 weeks after I got there, cancer. I sounded the alarm. I went to see him, and I was like, this guy's really sick. Called my mom. I said, if you guys want to see your dad, you should get there right now. And he was gone in a couple weeks, so I didn't know anybody.
Wow.
So I kind of consider the whole formative inspiration of the arts really going to New York. No one, certainly in my family, is in the entertainment business. So we had to, it's so hopeful.
It was an excellent leap.
Yeah.
There's a dog chasing tennis balls on the golf course right there.
If it was three-legged, that's the only way this could get more hopeful.
That's right. I'm not going to swing the lens for four legs.
Yeah. I can tell you're a good filmmaker.
You know, you got to pick your shots. You're 19 and you moved to New York. Where do you land? Brooklyn, Queens, Manhattan?
I landed
Staten Island.
I landed in the East Village. Again, Craigslist came up, and I found these. I called them the broads. These broads that went to NYU. They had a closet that basically, I mean, truly a closet. Yeah, there you go.
Well, I hate to interrupt. I'm an interrupter. I like fucking with the guys on this golf course over here. I walk around this golf course quite a bit, and when I do, I often find these balls, and when nobody's looking, I like to just like toss them into the mix and kind of like
Let's interrupt their mojo. Let's see what happens.
These guys are a little too close to the action for me to.
Well, now we can really get some action because we'll be the first. Have you had a fight on these dock walks?
I have been chased off. No, I'm not the dock walks. No, yeah. You know what? Gene, you're a big guy, and the fact that you were living on the Lower East Side at 19, 20 years old, I'd be willing to walk into the fire with you.
We could do this.
By my side, hopefully in front of me.
They have polo shirts. We'll be all right today.
That's right. I mean, if Ben were here, he'd be breaking it up. I guarantee you, he's a peacemaker.
Well, that's helpful.
But I am a rabble-rouser, and I can tell you're not afraid to talk a little shit.
I like to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, we're gonna let these guys do their thing, and then I'm gonna let you take the ceremonial golf ball toss. But you were talking to me about the broads of the East Village.
The broads of the East Village. I moved in. This is actually I thought a great like welcoming ceremony to New York City. I got a drawl. You know, my Texas drawl is pretty thick at that point. I moved to the Lower East Side with these 3 NYU broads, and I'm thinking that everyone is, you know, I was like, it's New York City, it's the fastest place in the world, they don't ever sleep, they go. But these ladies, they were all in school, but they were talking to me so slowly for a while. And then their friends would come over, they'd have these parties, and they were all just kind of treating me like, they were just treating me in like some kind of delicate way, and I couldn't quite figure it out because I go outside and I was like, seems normal. And I had a flip phone, I broke it on the subway the first day, so I just had to memorize all phone numbers. And I heard you had to put it in your front pocket, otherwise you get robbed. So and of course I went through the turnstile, cracked the screen. I was like too embarrassed to say anything about it, so I just memorized phone numbers. But they told the broads of the Lower East Side told all of their friends that I was autistic. They thought it would be funny. And so they had this whole this gag going for quite some time. Shit, this guy, oh, he's vaping. What's up? How you doing? Good. Is that the margarita flavor? Is that the margarita flavor? Oh, the cobbler. You a cobbler man.
Bananas Foster.
Yeah. Have a good set, brother. Set? Is that what you call it? No, when you come to I'm showing that. I'm way more comfortable with the vape than the golf.
I'm out of my depth on both of those.
So I had these three ladies. Eventually that was hilariously discovered, and they started treating me like a little brother. And I'm trying to like get the acting going, and I got the $99 black and white headshot. And just terrible. And on 13th Street, there was this off-Broadway theater called Classic Stage Company.
Okay.
And they'd always do these classics, but it was a small, like 300-seater. And eventually, I would walk by that theater so many times. Is this up to me, the golf?
Yeah.
The golf ball?
Is this your moment?
Well, he's kind of dialed, right?
Yeah.
You think he'll let me hit one?
We should ask. Let's get Gonzo on the shit.
Let me see if he hits one first.
Straight experiential.
If he does really well, maybe the odds go up, right?
I think he's got about a 6 iron. Oh, he let that one go.
It's like a 60-footer. Sir, would you mind? I've never hit a golf ball before. Would you mind could I take a swing?
You want to aim for that hole?
Yeah,
That's how it works, right?
Yeah, I don't know. Where should I put it?
Like anywhere on the. Honestly, it'll probably be easier right over here to want to kick it over.
Okay, yeah.
Grass is a bit shorter.
What do they call this grass versus that grass?
So we got fairway, and then the rough is the taller grass.
Hold on.
What's your name?
Raj.
Raj? Were you a USA fan?
I am, yeah.
Yeah, man. We could talk about that all day.
Rough, but.
Yeah, we're getting real gonzo. All right, that's what I'm aiming for. Let's see. Okay.
You break it, you buy it.
Holy sh!
Still going.
Oh!
It's in the hole.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much. Thank you. That's on camera, so it'll be remembered. until they delete it from the internet.
Raj, we have your permission to use this?
Of course.
Of course we do.
Thanks,
Have a great
brother.
day.
Of course. Appreciate you. There's a golf ball sitting right next to the hole waiting for you. You can claim it as yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's Gene Gallerano who stepped out of the gallery to
Lay one up, I think is what they call it, right? Laid one up real quick.
Hey Gino, let's hit this shade over here.
Yeah,
That's a good text, and I'm always on the lookout for some shade.
let's do it.
So we're walking across the Hancock Golf Course, and this is part of my fairly normal morning routine. The golfers do not appreciate,
Okay.
but this is a public course, and I am a part of the
sorry.
public.
Yeah,
And
perfect. Some of our neighbors there,
that's right.
they look a little annoyed.
Yeah,
They're too annoyed they'll just start aiming for us. Raj is cool.
that was great.
He gets it.
Back to the acting classes at
Hitting
the.
the streets, hitting the streets.
Take it to the
getting
streets.
wild. I got this classic stage company on 13th Street, which becomes kind of like the North Star of the moment. Like someday I'll hit it, right? Someday that's my opportunity. If I can get it, if I can get a career going, I'll be there. Eventually, I'm doing this starring Austin Pendleton documentary. And
Well,
of course-
how does that happen? You're just
because
doing
I was
it.
taking classes with Austin.
Okay.
I heard actually one of the broads
Yep.
of the Lower East Side, her father was an artistic director of a theater company called the Williamstown Theater
Okay.
Festival.
That's like a age-old
Yeah.
summer stock program where actors from New York and from Providence and the Yale Dramatic School come. They spend the summer and they run through plays a week at a time.
Yep, and it's great. A lot of actors go there in the summer. They work on their chops. A lot of celebrities go through there for these quick special kind of performance hits, iconic, historic, all of those things. And yeah, her dad and Austin co-ran it.
Okay.
And she said, there's this guy, Austin, you have to study from him. He teaches this place called HB Studios. HB also happened to be the cheapest place to study in the city as well, which was very helpful for a 19, 20, 21-year-old. So I got in Austin's class studying with him a bunch. That's where I met my co-director.
You can blame that one on us.
Oh, yeah.
You met your co-director.
Yeah, I met my co-director in class there. We became friends. We did a play. We both auditioned, got into a play that Austin directed up in the 30s somewhere with one of the Arkin boys and
Alan Arkin's kids, David Arkin, Adam Arkin.
Matthew. Yeah, this is Matt Arkin.
Okay.
And Alan Arkin's ex-wife, Barbara Dana, she wrote it. And so we did this play, and I was like, Mom, I hit $219 a week. I hit it. I'm gonna drop out of any school, and I'm an actor now. She's like, please don't do that. Please don't do that. She was right.
She was right. She was right.
And so my co-director, we were both doing, I was in hundreds of commercials. I got myself a commercial agent. I found like my shtick as a commercial actor. I was doing well there. We bought that Panasonic. And my friend David was like, let's make a movie on Austin. And we'll get all these interviews. He's such a touching dude. Everybody loves him. And so that's where that originated. But he directed a play.
Austin?
Yeah, Austin, called Ivanov, which is the Russian Hamlet, at that theater on 13th Street on the same block that I was my first apartment with the broads of the Lower East Side. And I got into it.
You're in the play?
Ethan Hawke was in it, Juliet Rylance, Jolie Richardson, and it was awesome. And it just felt so good to finally to be able to step on the stage of this place that seemed like a North Star for so long. And acting is really hard. It's hard to A, do it right, and then B, the luck that you need and the breaks that you need to have a career are just almost impossible. Almost impossible.
I think acting is a great impossibility that of all of the arts, it's the only one that demands that somebody else says yes before you can get a shot at all. And what I mean by that is,
yeah,
if you're a musician, you can pull your guitar out at a party or stand on the corner, right?
Yes.
If you're a writer, pick up your pen. If you're a director, grab a camera. But if you're an actor and you just start acting, people call that schizophrenia.
yeah,
And so the only actors who can take control of their entire who can create their destiny have to become writers, have to become producers, to become directors. If you're just
very famous, and they have so many opportunities that they get to pick and choose, which is very tiny.
That's at the end of that. At the end of that puzzle, right? Like, but on step one, there is just no. It's a life of rejection. So I have tremendous respect. I love actors and acting, the interpretive arts across the board, and the fact that you come out of that world and your very first documentary experience is focusing in on somebody who's made a life of not just acting, but directing and mentoring young people. What did you learn from Austin?
Well, he very much was like, you go where the work is. You know, it doesn't matter if it's in a 3,000 seat house, a 30 seat house, someone's basement. You go and you do it. You play Hamlet in the church basement, in the friend's living room. You just go where the work is. And in the philosophical way, that is absolutely correct. That is 1,000% correct.
When did you apply that lesson?
Well, I had been applying it my whole life in a way. I mean, I was already there. I just didn't have words or the understanding or the technique. And then, of course, when you hear that and you're studying, and this is like, I'm reading a play a day, watching a film a day. I'm trying to take it as seriously as possible, really trying to like take in as much as I can. I always feel like time is such an interesting thing, and I always feel like I'm very aware of the preciousness of it and not having enough.
Yeah.
And so I'm always thinking about like, I gotta make up for the time I've wasted. And that doesn't mean, I don't look at that as a failure. I look at that in a very positive way of like, there's so much I have to take in before it's out, you know? And
this is not an infinite resource that we've got.
Yeah, like those days I was truly reading a play a day, watching a film a day. I mean, that's a 5-hour commitment right there.
Yeah.
I was in the arena, but it just wasn't firing all the time and firing enough. And I hated that I needed someone else's permission to do this. Like you said, it was so frustrating to me. Maybe it's like the restlessness of my family of many generations. We call it the Polish restlessness. That's the Poles who came and the Italians who came through Ellis Island. And so what that does is exactly what you said. I started writing, and I got a camera, and we started making things. And it allowed this kind of whole creation to happen. But it turns out that just getting a camera and just starting to write is also really difficult. And then it's a whole other component, getting things seen, which is the ultimate goal, right?
It's a multifaceted life of rejection at this point.
Yeah. So the frustration of all of that's mounting, and I very much want to just tell stories and be a part of stories and lived experiences. And so I found this little niche in disaster zones. And there was this. Are we walking this way?
Yeah, let's go this way. Wait, say more about that. What does that mean, disaster zones?
Disaster zones like hurricanes, flooding, wildfire. So I start really like news, like a more news approach.
Kind of a storm chaser vibe.
Yeah, I talked my way into, I think there was a Carolina hurricane, and I talked my way into it, and I think it was like a CNN thing, and I basically had to buy my way in. Like, I'll pay for myself you give me the credential, I will return with a story. Don't worry about the $500 flat rate, whatever garbage it is, you know.
Right.
I'll get myself there. And I did. And what I really enjoyed about it was there was this basic foundation of humanity in some of these where everyone had lost stuff and they're just trying to find their way to the next, whatever the next shelter is. And there was something about it that I liked. And I got in with like these different groups. Some of them were like religious groups. So I found myself in prayer circles some nights, you know, and another group was like this Operation Barbecue Relief group that is these pit masters from all over the country that come together and just cook a bunch of food for people who have lost their homes and just need in need of food and shelter. And I thought, well, this is kind of interesting. Like, I can't predict what's happening with the acting. I'll keep doing that, and like filmmaking. That stuff's hard, but I was really taken to this news and this more journalistic approach.
Man, what a great way to engage with humanity, right?
Well, you also learn a lot about, like you said, there's tremendous opportunity in disaster, which has been said many times by many different people. And
Mostly the insurance companies.
Yeah, but there are all different levels of it. I mean, you go there and you see all the like the disaster relief workers that work for like the utility companies. There's something about just having to stop the world in these disaster zones because it does shut it down.
Yeah.
And you have to rebuild, and everyone has to rebuild, and that means a lot of different things to different people. But everyone is in this similar rebuilding process, and there's something really fascinating about that. And it's just a great way to see like a lot of pieces of humanity. And that doesn't mean it's all pretty. You know, it's very sad on a lot of fronts as well. Like if you've ever been in a Walmart where the whole thing's been looted and you're standing with some guy with a sidearm and he's just, you know, and he's like looks pretty wild, pretty hectic, and a little bit, you know, unsettled. And you see him and he's like rifling through stuff, and I look in his cart and he's just got a bunch of formula in there, you know, and you're like, okay.
It's an evocative picture you've just painted, my friend. We make documentaries that focus on people going through some of the most difficult human experiences so that we can understand how we'd fare in that situation, whether we'd meet the test, what a greater humanity looks like when we're just living a regular day-to-day existence. Do you have a thought on that?
I think if I was going to relate my experiences, I got this opportunity to go be a field producer on this film called The First Wave, my friend Matt Heineman.
Yep.
It was in New York City during the pandemic, the height of it. We're in the ICUs, went in there, and I eventually became the hospital guy. And the field producer's also holding a boom pole, so you're in all the rooms. And you're watching these people, and I'm working with the best, you know, team, I think the best documentary team on the planet, best verite shooters on the planet by far. And I'm holding this boom pole for hours and hours and hours, and you're seeing, like, you know, my first day was in the ICUs for the first 6 hours with my friend Ross McDonnell, who I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
And then in those, hey, how you doing? What's up, team? And then the second half of the day was in those like 18-wheeler morgue trucks with pallets of bodies.
Wow.
And so it's very real and very like, and at the same time in the morgue, the people that worked there had the best sense of humor. I mean, they were like so full of life and still finding the light and the levity in this moment, which was just traumatic. And of course, me, I'd never seen really any of this stuff, like maybe a body or something in a disaster zone, like very little. And I had a 4-year-old at the time, 3.5, 4-year-old, and my wife was pregnant. And after that first day, I said, I'll do this, but I need an Airbnb and a car in case my family needs to leave.
Yep.
But it felt really important.
Yeah.
I felt the moment, and I was like, this is where you need to be. You are meant to be right here. Everything else is leading you to be right here. And I remember you would just get in these long cycles of work because you didn't want to feel like you didn't want to miss a thing because it felt so important, so necessary, and you're trying to document this role for all these healthcare workers, right? And see what they're actually dealing with. And, you know, you're seeing the crazy chaos of the news, and some people don't believe it.
Yeah.
All this bullshit. But it's happening. We're in it. And, you know, people would expire, and it wasn't necessarily quick. It would be four-hour sequences, and someone might pass, and they bring them back. Pass again, bring them back. Ooh. This is a daily thing. I had this team called the Rapid Response Team of these just like heroic people who'd go in and save them and do everything they could. But I would be there and I was listening to the whole thing. And remember, everyone has masks.
Yeah.
Goggles, they're all covered up. So like I'm there with a boom pole listening, trying to track the movements or trying to track the story or what's happening. I'm obviously dancing with whichever DP is there.
Yeah.
And I felt like we were very in sync. And it was incredibly traumatizing and sad. It's very unexpected and raw and real. No one was ready for this. And I remember during the like heaviest moments, you would just get in this flow state. But for me, the thing that would always, so I could find my equilibrium again, I always had these 2 lines from a song that would play over and over, and I would just repeat them. I also couldn't remember any other lines, right? Even though I'd heard the song 1 million times, I just couldn't remember any other lines. but it was like the thing that just brought me the ability to kind of like stay present, be in the room, and do my job. And it was these 2 lines from Beauty and the Beast, which we watched all the time. My daughter was in love with Belle at the moment.
Okay.
And I would just say, tale as old as time, Beauty and the Beast. And I would just do that on repeat for hours. Sometimes I'd be sobbing in my mask, and you can't touch anything, right? You're worried you're gonna infect yourself or whatever. But I would just say it, tale as old as time, Beauty and the Beast, for hours. And so I think
I just got chills.
what I'm trying to articulate is that's the reason why we tell the stories. And it's not about me, it's about me getting out of the way of myself to be able to try and help tell the story of whoever's having it in front of us. And I think in a lot of ways that's as good as it gets and as close as I'll ever get.
That is a tale as old as time, Gene Gallerano.
Beauty and the Beast.
Beauty and the Beast. I think I'm the Beast on this particular.
No, man, you're Beauty. You're Beaut.
Thank you,
You're
sir.
Beaut, man.
Thank you, sir. We are almost back to where we started, and we have covered a ton of territory. I want to get a little nuts and boltsy on you here
Yeah.
to wrap it up.
You think we're too Jackson Pollocky of storytelling? We're like, hey,
Not at all.
boom, boom. Like
You know, look,
squirrels.
I mean, my ADHD brain like skitter-scatters from subject to subject on every one of these walks.
Did you get ADHD as a kid, though, or are you an adult?
Oh no, I'm
ADHD?
definitely like a ruined by a phone. You know, I think I was definitely like a restless kid who, I remember this, you know, never diagnosed, right? But I remember this as a kid. Every class I was in from about 7th grade through graduation of high school, my goal at the beginning of every class was to get out of this room. And whether it was like, 7 classes a day,
Yeah.
I was pretty successful. I'd say 5 out of 7 classes, 5 days a week, get out of this room. And so it's maybe part of the reason I am not a world-class verite filmmaker, because the patience to kind of shut off the voices and stand in the corner is hard for me. I'm always editing, and I'm always like imagining and constructing. It's one of the things I really related to in the Joshua Ray Walker film, thank you for listening, what we started out talking about, is that it's a really constructed doc, literally from the set construction, which you outlined, but the shot selection and kind of the way the story unfolds, you know, it's not rough and bumping into the door frame as you follow somebody, you know, into an unexpected left turn, right? It's a very kind of stable and deliberate unfolding of choices is how it felt to me as a viewer.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's accurate for you as the maker, but for me as a viewer, that was the experience I had with it. And it really brought me in because it made me feel like, oh, this is a person who is crafting something and not just reacting and not just capturing, which I have no problem with, and I'm excited, and people who do that really well. And there are moments in my own career where I feel like I've caught that wave, you know, but it's not something I want to do every day. I'm not the guy who wants to stand in the corner and kind of let the pace of life unfold.
Observational,
on its own.
Yeah.
So, anyway, back to
Well, that comes from a fiction background as well, which I really love. Like, if I could do anything, I would make hybrid films. I mean, I just love the ability to be able to craft things as well. Like, sometimes you have characters. Josh was incredibly playful and incredibly game, and, you know, remember one time I was asking him to do like the guitar strum.
Yeah.
I was like, I need this slow motion shot of you doing the strum, and I could just see he was like, just really not into it, right?
Oh.
And it's hard to force people to do something, and then worse than that is it's hard to try to get something good if they're not into it. And I was like,
especially
what
as
is
an artist.
Yeah. I was like, what's the problem? He's like, it's the equivalent of having someone go like this and do the director thing. And I was like, okay, I get it. I'm out.
Howdy.
Do right. Love Texas.
It's a tale as
Old as time.
Okay, nuts and bolts. You have collaborated with great artists, Joshua Ray Walker, Matt Heineman, Bob Ray, who, you know, is a hometown hero. And I know Bob from way back when he was making Hell on Wheels, the roller derby series or his feature 15, 20 years ago. I don't know Bob well at all. I don't know him well enough. We need to get him on the podcast. You've done co-directing a couple different times. You're an actor.
Yep.
You're a writer. How do you handle collaboration, and what advice do you have in the world of collaboration, putting a team together or co-directing in particular, something I really haven't done?
Well, there's definitely no independent film, right? You're completely dependent on others to help you get it done. I think it's a mixed bag. There are certain parts of it that are easy, and there are certain parts of it that are very difficult. And
what are your strengths in there?
it's probably the same strength and weakness, like pushing really hard to get something accomplished, and then pushing really hard to get something accomplished.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's really appropriate and helpful, and sometimes it gets in the way.
Right.
Or, other people might have problems with it the way it is, and you're just seeing it as like, I'm just trying to get it to the finish line. And yeah, it's a mixed bag, but every time I've done it, it's been overwhelmingly positive and joyful, and I think we've made better things because of it. And that's, in the end, that's what I care about. A friend sent me this thing called the Nonfiction Hot List, and they were looking to help some films out. And it was this one-page little deal, and I had a teaser. I had some kind of like teaser type scene.
Yeah.
And I was like, fuck it, I'll just submit. And I submitted. And I've never gotten in any program whatsoever of any variety. And they knighted me. And
we love the Nonfiction Hot List, Adam Newhouse and ISIS and all the work they're doing. What was it when you applied? How was it presented to you? What were they offering, and what were you excited about getting out of it?
So thank you for listening. I'm making this film on a credit card and flying to Texas. The whole crew's flying to Texas. Everyone's supporting in any way they can. We're shooting the film in my mom's loft space. And I hear about this program of filmmakers who are trying to help films get made. That's it. There was no information. You couldn't find anything. I didn't even know who they were. There wasn't even a list of names. And so I submit, and I get an email someday, hey, we've selected you. We really like your project and think it has potential. Can we talk? And I was like the geekiest person on the whole Zoom. There's like 15 of them. And I was just so thankful. It's like, thanks so much for just taking me. By the way, what are you taking me on? Thank you so much for selecting me. What does that mean? So Adam, Isis, Ben, Carol, Andrew, this whole list of Anna, and this is this huge, incredible ensemble of people in the community. And I felt really honored, I was like, thank you so much. Yeah. Thank you for selecting. and they seemed real. They were like full Texas soul, clear eyes, full hearts, just can't lose. Yeah, and they were like, we're going to help you do this. Here are all of our ideas. And that led to a series of a ton of people calling and reaching out, like really amazing filmmakers and producers and executive producers. People would reach out. The reach of the Nonfiction Hot List was so impressive. People would reach out just to drop ideas. Wow. And be like, hey, I'm definitely not the right person, but I ran into this person, or I ran across this event once. Think about this. I'd be happy to connect you. I mean, it was amazing. But then a producer named Daniel, who saw the project on the hot list, reached out and said, hey, I think you'd be a really good fit for Texas Monthly. Now, me, being good Texan, I subscribe to I have 2 subscriptions, New York Times and Texas Monthly. And I was like, wow, that would be amazing. And like my guy Dan Winters is in the movie, right? He's also plays the grandfather. He did the poster shot for us. So we talked with Texas Monthly, Megan Crite, J.K. Nickel. They're awesome. They're so wholehearted, honest, intelligent, like they're heat-seeking missiles for smart ideas. I mean, they're really great. And they came on board, and I was so happy, and they were just really supportive, and their ideas were awesome. Any notes they gave me were really helpful, and they've been tremendous supporters, and it got to be a little bit of a unicorn in the Nonfiction Hot List, and I hope that someday I'll be allowed to talk about where it might actually go. But they've been really fantastic. I mean, if they call and say, we need you here, I'm there. Yeah. And so it was really, it really felt good, and it felt right for the film. You know how people tell you, like, the right people will sign up, and you're like, fuck you, I just want this person to give me millions of dollars because they're making movies every day, even though they're not right for the movie. The right people will find you. Yeah. And that's really hard to accept when you're scrambling and like desperate, and This is one of those instances, if you build it, they will come. If you build it, they will come. And so the Nonfiction Hot List, Texas Monthly, we can't say where it's going next. But it's going. It's going. Yeah. We're going to take you there when
it gets to where it's going. Wrapping up this walk.
Yeah.
I got to jump. I got another call in 5.
Sorry, they're paid. Oh, call waiting.
Wrapping it up. What is the light bulb moment? We call it the gateway drug. Gateway drug. Yeah. Whether it's a play, a documentary, a movie, a performance by an actor, or a great piece of literature. Usually we ask filmmakers, like, what's the documentary that kind of like blew the world open for them? But you've got so many interests and kind of come at it from so many angles.
Yeah.
Is there a thing that you can kind of hone in on?
Taking acid in high school? No.
Jump the gate and right to it.
Yeah, straight to it. Well, I'll tell you, my mind works, whenever it was like your favorite film, I'm like, my favorite film of the moment, but let me just rapid fire some ideas that might be there. I thought high school was the movie Dazed and Confused meets The Doors.
Yeah.
Those were absolutely foundational moments. I watched them on repeat. My friend Ryan, his dad was a Methodist minister, and he showed us in 6th grade the film Cool Hand Luke. And I remember at the moment, similarly to being in the ICUs, like feeling a historical kind of vibration from it, where I thought, this is really important for me to watch this film right now. And so I every time I watch Cool Hand Luke, I discover something new. I think it's a perfect film. It obviously has like these themes of rebellion. Obviously that beautiful man, Paul Newman. Making the starring Austin Pendleton, absolutely a window into, like, maybe for good or bad, I don't know. We'll see what direction it goes, where the work is. Like, it could lead to bad things as well. I mean, the arts are really hard. When I lean over to, like, last words to my kids before they go to sleep, I don't say ART, I'm like CEO, MBA, or whatever, anything but ART.
I was like, my son the other day asked me, what's an entertainment attorney? He's 10 years old. I said, it's exactly what you should be, and you'd be saving me literally $1,000 an hour.
It's the best way to be in entertainment. No, I don't know. Maybe the AI will get them out of there soon. But
Moving on. Yeah. What is a piece of advice that you would give to an emerging filmmaker? I know I kind of teased this up, and you've already dealt a bunch of advice out on this walk.
I don't know. Let me just parrot a few things. You go where the work is. If you have time to worry, you have time to work. That's always that came to me through a mentor named Carl Bury.
That hit hard right there.
Because, we all start spinning, and I'm like, man, if you can just stop the spin for 1 minute, start doing something, you will pull yourself out of it.
If you have time to wait.
One more. I had a mentor named Reed Birney.
Okay.
He was journeyman actor, had done a bunch of stuff, but not famous in any way. And at 57, he did a play by an actress named Sarah Kane, Soho Rep Playhouse in New York City. Got extended and extended and extended. It is the most brutal play. He gets like accosted. At one point, he eats the face of one of his fellow company members. He gets fully naked in the show. It's brutal. It is one of those shows where I remember the first time I saw it, I walked out and it was a sleeting, cold New York City night, and I was like, man, this is so beautiful. But he told me, he said, if you would have told me that it would take till I was 57 before I got my break, I would have put a gun to my head. He didn't mean that. He's obviously all over the place. He's a great dude, but there's something to be said for that. I go back to that, try to beat you away with a bat. You just gotta, eventually they say, oh, he's still here.
Just hang around.
Yeah.
You got time to worry. You got time to work. That is going to play in my mind over and over again. Beauty and the Beast.
Man. Yeah. Heavy.
Next time on Doc Walks, Keith and I walk with Margaret Brown. Margaret is a prolific documentary director and a close personal friend, and we are thrilled to host her on our show on the eve of her premiere of episode 5 of the Yogurt Shop Murders, playing at the Austin Film Society. You're not going to want to miss this conversation. It's sprawling. It's fun. We get a little weird. Margaret is a thrill to talk to. We love her movies, and we hope that you stay tuned for this special episode of Doc Walks.
Doc Walks is created, produced, and edited by my friend Ben Steinbauer of The Bear.
Hello. And my friend Keith Maitland of Go Valley. with help from our co-producer Dayton Thompson and editing by Riley Church. Follow us at DocWalks Pod on YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn.